Dina, can you please start?
Namaste to everyone logged on and to our panel. Thank you, Karunaji, for always having me to be in charge sometimes. Let's we all chant Om 3 times and then the Gayatri mantra. Let us believe that God is with us, and let us pray in earnestness with love and devotion, especially for everyone in KZN and Gauteng. Bhurvuvaswaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devas Yadhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. O God, the giver of life, remover of pains and sorrows, bestower of happiness and creator of the universe, you are most luminous, pure, and adorable. We meditate on you. May you inspire and guide our intellect in the right direction. Over to you, Karunaji.
Thank you. Namaste, friends. And welcome to the Bhimsen family in particular, Sudasha and Krishtija and Shanta. Welcome to your first webinar with us, and also to all other friends. Friends, just a few small rules of etiquette. But like everybody other than the speakers, to close their videos and also to actually have their mics muted. And when you do want to speak, please raise your hand. We will be having a part of the session where you will be able to ask questions and speak. Now, we have pondered over the current situation and the realities of the 21st century in this webinars. And we all know and probably are experiencing a lot of violence, terror, and lawlessness in most of the areas that we're living in. We are fast coming to realize that the world as we know it has changed, and it's changing rapidly. In today's webinar, we're going to focus on how we can direct the change required of all of us at a personal level and collectively. Now, there are many realities. There's realities of inequalities and exploitation. There's realities about people wanting to contest power. There's strife that we all are witnessing with the spread of COVID and the recent rioting that has been taking place largely in KwaZulu-Natal and in Gauteng. We know that the effects of global warming and climate change have impacted on our lives, and this has been in very decisive ways. With the pandemic, we all adjusted our behavior to try and protect our lives. And right now, a number of people are actually protecting their lives and their properties because the state has failed to do so. At first, many of us felt the pandemic would go away and our lives will return to normality. Now, more than a year down the line, we have accepted that we are going to be living with the threats to our lives, and we're all learning to mitigate these risks. Now, change is a reality. In the past, we used the plain old telephone system, POTS, to actually transmit our voices and talk to people over a copper network. Today, digital and nanotechnology has changed the way we live, the way we communicate, the way we work, and even conduct our daily lives. In fact, we're having this webinar using voice over IP. and transmission of data packages and the internet in terms of of using our computers, our tablets, and our smartphones. So how do we change our lifestyles? And how do we change the world views that we have to cope with changes? How do we develop an ethical sense? How do we develop mastery of the self and fulfill our Swadharma? The current trajectory in the world is pushing billions of people to live below the poverty line. And we know with the recent events we've witnessed in the last few days, a number of people are going to lose their jobs. And so we also know that the quality of life is declining. There are very, very increased levels of injustice and intolerance. But these are also spiritual matters. Good governance and economics will not fix everything if individuals are not ready to play their part. They're part of being part of humankind that is connected and interdependent. How can we develop responsibility of being human and acting in accordance with our Swadharma? Now, Hinduism has 4 major paths to liberation. Bhakti Yoga, which is devotion, Karma Yoga, which is selfless service, Gyan Yoga, which is inquiry and reflection, and Raj Yoga, which is meditation. These 4 stages and ashrams of life play a very big part in all our lives. The first part is devoted to study in our ashrams. The second is to acquire knowledge. The second one is also about family and society. It's about dharma, karma, and artha. And the third one is about retirement and reflection. And the last one is about living a spiritual practice. And then we have choices to develop our status in society. And this is the Varna system. And the word Varna comes from the root vri, which is choice. Choices that we make are always linked to our gunas, our abilities, our karma, our action, and our swabhava, which is our aptitude. And these choices lead us to the practice of spirituality, towards conducting our duty as human beings. We all need to work on the self to allow for our inner qualities and true nature to flourish. This is really about the attributes of God, the Creator, which is Satya, the truth, Prem, love, Karuna, compassion, Nyaya, justice or fairness. So the choices we make creates our lifestyle. And this also means that we choose what we eat. We choose what we buy. We choose what we accumulate. And how long we choose to stay angry with somebody and irritated or in a miserable mood. We also choose the company we keep. We choose the sounds we listen to. We choose the programs we watch. We choose to read the news every day. We choose whether we embark on selfless actions aimed at caring and sharing. We choose that. And we are prepared to stand for the truth and defend justice and democracy when we make those choices to do so. And all that shapes our stay on earth. So friends, today we're going to focus on some of these important issues. Now, we all know that on the 18th of July, it is Mandela International Day. At his 90th birthday, in 2008, Mandela said, where human beings are being oppressed, there is more work to be done. And that's how International Mandela Day came about. The 18th of July was officially declared in honor of Nelson Mandela by the United Nations. And their 67 minutes of selfless service represents his 67 years spent as a freedom fighter. And, you know, because it became an international day, we all know that that was the stature of our leader, Nelson Mandela. Indeed, Mandela is very much an agent of making Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, a reality. Now, in today's webinar, our focus is going to be on understanding Swadharma and coping with changing lifestyles. We will also be launching and sharing with you the Arya Samaj Gauteng Square Meter Garden project as part of the 67-minute selfless service and our contributions to saving the planet. So without wasting too much time, I'm going to call on Pandit Uma Manogran, who is a Vedic priest, a life coach, an alternative healer, and a musician. And he's going to talk to us about personal mastery and realizing Swadharma, mechanisms to cope in a changing world. Thank you very much. Uma, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I first want to check whether you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, fine. Then I'll begin. Namaste and warm greetings to all of you, the chairperson and members of Arya Samaj Gauteng, Arya Samaj South Africa, and the listeners and viewers who are watching this live event in South Africa, across the seas. It is a privilege and pleasure to address you today and to be part of the virtual Bridge series, a truly outstanding initiative by Arya Samaj Gauteng to strategize a way of living during the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic and its associated factors are today seeing the global society and more recently dramatically impacting on us here locally, experiencing unprecedented changes in life. As long ago, it was a person called Heraclitus who said, "The only constant thing in life is change." Now, the ancient Greek philosopher is remembered for his cosmology, in which fire forms the basic material principle in an orderly universe. But there is historical evidence that Heraclitus formed strong bonds with our own Vedic seers of antiquity, and later introduced the doctrine of flux and the unity of opposites to Western civilization. This philosophy brings two important Vedic and Sanskrit principles to mind. The first is called Rita, and the second is called Satya. In Vedic etymology, Rita is the principle of natural order, which regulates and coordinates the operation of the universe and everything in it. In the hymns of the Rig Veda, Rita is described as that which is ultimately responsible for the proper functioning of the natural, moral, and sacrificial orders of our natural world. When we examine the word Satya, what is revealed is that Satya is more than a dualistic examination of something as merely being true or false. Satya is the state of being that arises when we operate from our highest or purest consciousness. There is a concept in linguistics termed the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which posits that the language we speak influences the way we think and the way that we act. A deeper study of the Sanskrit word Satya can give us a new way of understanding what truth entails. It bypasses our tendency to intellectualize matters and instead resonates with our deepest, instinctive, and individual consciousness. To look at what dharma truly means, we must look at its epistemological origins in the Rig Veda. In classical Sanskrit, dharma derives from the root drit, which means to hold, to maintain, and to keep. Over the Vedic and the Upanishadic periods, the interpretations, the concept of dharma has been closely linked to the two fundamental ideas of Vrita and Satya. Vrita, of course, refers to the order of nature, which is fundamental to the way the universe is and how life emerges. Satya refers to the absolute truth that underlines this order of things and also reflects the same back to our individual consciousness. We can therefore say that which upholds the natural laws of the universe and the order of nature is dharma. In nature, there is an inherent duality of objects and phenomena. Things are local and global. Phenomena are transient, and yet reality can be unchanging. The order of things, or ita, lies in this duality and even in its multiplicity, because we live in a world with multiplicity of realities. The truth, or satya, of the cosmos is in this idea of unity. In Brahman creation, the singularity from which the Big Bang happened, every element in the universe is inherently connected and interacts with every other element in the cosmos. Therefore, any interaction is inherently a self interaction in the highest scheme of things. And it is the concept of dharma that is a cornerstone of that which upholds satya, truth, because dharma holds the mind, intellect, memory, and our soul in harmony. The word swa roughly means one's own, and dharma refers to one's duty. Thus, a person's swadharma is his or her unique role in life, and which is their duty to realize and fulfill. Swadharma is that action which is performed in accordance with one's own nature. It is about acting in accordance with one's own skills, aptitudes, and deep interests. Swadharma is the lawful conduct of oneself based on one's ability. It requires a person to be deeply aware of one's strengths, abilities, and weaknesses, and to act in accordance with them. By self reflection and self awareness, one gauges what is one's swadharma or tendencies. Fire burns, water flows, and trees photosynthesize. At the human level, everyone has some inherent personality traits. This needs to be used and evolved to best suits one's existence. The first step in doing so is reflexive self awareness, which is the cornerstone of Vedic Dharma. The Bhagavad Gita explains Swadharma as an individual's unique duties, responsibilities, and righteousness. It is unique because everyone is born with his or her own unique traits, aptitudes, nature, and capacities, which is known as Swabhav. The uniqueness of Swabhav depicts that each one of us is born with a purpose, which can be obtained through our own and distinctive journey in life. Swadharma is about accepting ourselves as we really are, and then discovering our unique qualities and strengths and building on them. The Gita warns against attempting to live out the dharma of another person. It could create conflict and chaos. Instead, it asks us to discover our own capacity and to use them in selfless service. This is the goal and growth of human life. When we understand this and grow, we are then following our Swadharma. The importance of the concept of Swadharma can be read in chapter 3, verse 35 of the Gita. The verse says that it is better to discharge one's prescribed duties or dharma, even though they may be imperfect, than engaging in duties more suitable for someone else. For to follow the path prescribed for someone else is ill advised and even dangerous. And on this very day, we see this unfolding dangerously all around us. Dharma is the foundational pillar for an individual's life and is fundamental to everyone. It is the primordial key to live one's life morally by being conscientiously correct when accomplishing one's duties. Hence, When an individual is aware of his dharma and is acting upon his duties, then awareness arises for that individual as to what these duties truly entail. The frog who tries to blow himself up to grow as big as the bull can explode itself to death, because the swadharma of a frog is to remain a frog. The swadharma of a fish is to live in water. Milk may be better than water, but a fish that insists on living elsewhere will die. The sun is the source of the energy that the earth gets to maintain life on the planet. But if we leave the earth to be closer to the sun, we will be burnt to death, because our swadharma is to live on earth. Following on from these basic examples, we see that all entities present in the universe are supposed to behave according to the unique swadharma in order to maintain the right balance, the right flow. At the same time, their swadharma is not static or fixed, and a person may have multiple swadharmas too, depending on one's journey and the purpose of existence. Swadharma then becomes inextricably linked to the actualization of a person's karma. The knowledge about what I should do or what I should not do comes from the inner self and its nature. This involves our choices, which are linked to our abilities or gunas, our actions or karma, and to our aptitudes or our swabhav. Performing one's duties according to one's inner conscience is also an illustration of swadharma. Both dharma and swadharma work simultaneously with each other, but the linking bridge between them is our attitudes, or swabhav. Swadharma is therefore the inner essence of one's expression of his or her unique personality. Therefore, Swadharma is the core center of an individual. It contains one's genetically hereditary variables together with the social components which are reflected in a person's mental framework. And Swadharma is not about destiny. Destiny, destiny can deny the reality of human choice. Swadharma involves a set of capacities and objectives, which, when fully developed, allows us to take our lives forward with greater meaning and potential. Growth is the impetus for personal mastery. In these often desperate and stressful times, we need to embark on processes of self discovery. We need to discover who we really are, what makes us bubble with vigor, what makes us create deep, meaningful interest and enthusiasm. Above else, what keeps us grounded and focused. The awakening and growth of our being is fundamental for the unfolding of our Swadharma, the work governed by our true nature. Only when this happens can we as individuals act in the world with harmony and purpose and counter the stresses and crises that we are facing today. Today's era has become the catalyst and the clarion call for expressing the highest possibilities of one's resourcefulness, creativity, spirituality, and purpose in life. When we do this, we become in tune with the infinite. We move in alignment with the inherent evolutionary forces of our being. This is done through the simultaneous bonding of our inner and outer explorations in life. The unraveling of our individual swadharma includes the processes of being self referential, which means finding our inner guide, become self directed, which is about making choices based on one's inner guidance, being experiential, which is learning by committing and doing, being immersive, which is to draw on the energy of the soul rather than the limitations of our mundane material mannerisms. And it must be integral, touching all parts of our existence. Lord Krishna guided Arjuna to take action and even mindedness and helped him to get through the end of the war at Kurukshetra. And today, we face the greatest war we've yet experienced. Such adverse conditions we face today can demoralize many of us. The ultimate winner or survivor is the person who not only fights against all adversities, but who also defeats all the negative emotions that threaten to destroy us. Getting to grips with our individual Swadharma and acting decisively on all its aspects can help us to maintain equanimity of mind without being overpowered by the emotions of fear, failure, and defeat. The challenges we face today call on us to become progressive and innovative. We must create more self awareness about matters that deserve our attention and service. And we must allow our individual identities to reach out in service to the composite whole of creation. All of life's complexities and challenges also create opportunities for each one of us to embark on a journey of transformation and self discovery to reach our true potential. And our true potential is inexhaustible because we are one with the limitless universe. We are its microcosm, and a microcosm possesses all the limitless qualities of a limitless universe. Indeed, the famous catchphrase we use, Vasudevam Kutumbakam, says clearly that the earth is one family. Today's challenges are also teaching us that when we suffer as one. All lives are inextricably linked as if on a chain, not confined to any individual level, but must reach out to build a just and better future for all of Earth's inhabitants, human, animal, plant, and mineral. Change affects us all, and we each deal with change differently. The willingness and the ability to become responsive to change can bring hope during challenging or unexpected life events. It is not only the circumstances or the changes that dictate how life continues, it is also about how we handle those changes and disruptions. No matter the change we experience, how we embrace that change will forever impact how we are able to live with change. What coping strategies do we use to help us manage unexpected life challenges? Do we fall back into old habits and patterns of addictive behaviors? Or do we practice acceptance and other positive coping behaviors? Acceptance involves action through positive coping strategies such as affirmations, visualization, journaling, and the practice of mindfulness. Another positive approach to change involves reaching out to a supportive network of people, specialist counselors, family, and friends. Their insight and perspective may be that change was required to push us forward in the right direction. It is also amazing how we each have our own resiliency and ability to recover from or to adjust to change. Today, we live in a world that seems to be spiraling out of control. One of the things that we must make efforts to control is the manner in which we are able to manage our energy. Practicing living life with an attitude of gratitude and embracing change is an opportunity for continuous growth. When we make concerted efforts with mind, body, and spirit working in harmony, we can unblock disruptive negative patterns. We can learn to make changes to cope with the changes happening around us. Because when we use our energy in positive ways, we start getting more clarity, peace of mind, purpose, and greater coping skills to survive and even thrive in a world that is prompting us to change. In this current age of pandemics, anxiety, uncertainty, and fear, if we are to attain personal mastery, we must first go deep within ourselves and understand who we really are and what we intend to do with our lives. We are then able to face the challenges presented in the outside world. Some of the information from sources other than our primary source, the self, could make us drift away from the fundamental essence of our being. It could blunt the beauty, truth, and the nature of our individuality. Personal mastery is an ongoing process. People with a high level of personal mastery live in a continuous learning mode, making positive changes in alignment with an ever changing world. Personal mastery is the process of living and working purposefully towards a vision in alignment with one's value. It is about adjusting and living in a world of reality in which one exists. To thine own self be true, the famous line from Shakespeare's Hamlet. when Polonius gave advice to his son when the young man travels abroad. And today, aren't we all on a journey? So how do we cope in a changing world? With the unprecedented impact that events are unfolding on society today, we must develop and utilize all the strategies we can muster to adjust and to cope. Because when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to dig deep within ourselves to change. It was Nelson Mandela who said, "We can change the world and make it a better place. It is in our hands to make a difference." The first criteria for change is the acknowledgement that matters around us are changing. Sometimes we get so caught up in fighting change that we may put off dealing with it. And denial is a powerful force, but we sometimes feel protected by it. However, we need to step outside of denial and resistance for change to happen. We must try to keep a regular schedule as much as possible. In fact, the more change there is, the more important it is to keep to our regular schedule as much as possible. The practice of journaling is a great way to track and document everything we do. We must be purposeful and innovative in setting up a useful, personalized journal. We should begin and end each day with at least 15 minutes of prayer, meditation, and affirmations. We must select each prayer, meditation, and affirmation according to what brings us the most comfort, joy, and peace. It is helpful to document our feelings after each session in our journals. This will help measure our emotions, prompt us to seek positive outcomes during our sessions. We must try to eat as healthily as possible. During crisis, we tend to reach out for comfort food, like carbs and sweetened food like breads and cakes. However, this isn't a healthy choice. We should rather be increasing the portions of fresh fruit and veggies we eat and also increase our intake of water. This will help energize us and strengthen our immune systems. The good way to track what we're eating is to also document those items. Keep track of all our prescribed medication and be mindful if any item or dosage requires to be changed, replaced, or even stored or stocked. Consider also natural therapies and supplements to complement prescribed medication. During these times, we may need to increase our vitamin and mineral intake. Vitamin B to combat stress, vitamin C, zinc, and omega 3 as examples to boost our metabolism and immunity. Again, we should itemize each thing in our journal, placing our favorite affirmations and prayers on the cover of our personalized journal can inspire us to enjoy the process of journaling. We need to engage in a daily exercise routine, depending on our state of health and age. Simple stretches, basic yogic breathing replenishes our lungs and helps drive out negativity. We should document again how many stretches and breathing exercises we do each day. We can make our journal an exciting and innovative extension of our lives. Begin your journal with a gratitude list. List down all the things you are grateful for and keep writing because even in these times, we may be astounded how big our gratitude list will be. The concept encourages us to remain focused on being positive at all times. Develop at least one new hobby. Choose an activity that connects meaningfully to our personal self and also to our society in desperate need. I know a lady who knits 3 woolen caps a day for babies and children suffering with cancer. Stay connected with people. Human beings, humans are social beings. We've designed that way. So even though we're not able to be physically close to one another right now, it is imperative that we stay socially connected. We must be thankful that we live in a digital age, which makes that so easy. Zoom, Facebook, and WhatsApp are wonderful ways to stay in touch and to bond. We can join organizations online to grow new interests and hobbies. Facebook has literally thousands of such groups, from bird watching, swimming with dolphins, DIY tips, history, geography, and science. When on social media, always ensure that you are engaged in realistic, uplifting, and positive interactions. Groups involved with conspiracy theories are an example of the negative groups to avoid. There are online courses run by Arya Samaj South Africa. We must utilize these platforms on aspects like learning Sanskrit and enhancing our Vedic knowledge. Thank you for inviting me to present the subject today. Your digital platforms and webinars initiate meaningful conversations to engage and discuss critical issues during these challenging and bleak periods. It is wonderful to see how purposefully Samaj members are engaging today in the 10 dynamic and timeless principles of the Arya Samaj, which was formulated and adjusted long ago in 1875. May peace shine its grace upon all of us during this period. Thank you very much for having me speak today. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you very much, Panditji. We basically are now going to open up for any comments and questions that you may have. Panditji raised some very, very good tips for us, but he's accessible and available to actually give more detail and answer any questions you would have. So is there anybody? Aarti, would you like to say something?
Namaste Karuna, Namaste Pandit Uma Manogaran and everyone else attending. Not a question really, Karuna. I just want to compliment Panditji on his excellent presentation. I'm sure everyone has followed it quite intently, and also for the tips that he gave us at the end. You know, I actually don't keep a journal, Panditji. I think I'm gonna start doing that now. Thank you for that. Also, if we listened carefully to what he said, everything about life is in the Vedas. And talking about joining an online class, I agree with him totally. We have online classes where you can learn more and obviously become as learned as Panditji is. Thank you, Karuna.
Thank you, Aarti. Perhaps also, Panditji, if you could share your notes with us. I'm pretty sure the Vedjyoti committee would like to turn it into an article that can be spread a little wider with more people in the Arya Samaj and beyond. So if you could please send those by email and we'd get back to you. Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Stay. Yes, Shanil, please go ahead.
Namaste, Panditji, Namaste, Karuna, Namaste, everyone else. I just want to say it was an amazing. I don't have a question because there's so much content in there. There's so much to try and understand and learn. And I've written down notes of things I now need to do. But it was very, very, very interesting. And I think it's a very useful way to think about life, because we do tend to, especially at this moment in time, everyone's despondent, not just because of the riots, not just because of COVID, because of all sorts of other things that are happening. And I think all that was suggested will be able to help in many, many ways. So thank you very much for that, because I expect that I'm going to find this to be very useful myself. I don't actually have any questions because it's so difficult to figure out where I am. I still need to figure out where I am. So maybe in a little while I will, and I mean in maybe months, hopefully not years, I will be in a position where I'm learned enough to be able to figure out some useful questions. But for now, I'm very grateful. So thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Shanil. Panditji, I know you do a lot of work with people in the rural areas in Natal. And I don't know if you want to share a little bit about how you actually go about giving support to people who have been either under gender-based violence, being victims of it, and people who are pretty damaged. How do you actually go about assisting them? Obviously, the personal mastery helps a lot, but then to actually share that with people who don't actually have the Vedic way of life and the Vedic philosophy in their backgrounds, there's a lot that you must be sharing with them and taking them through.
Yes, thank you, Karuna. So a comment, and it will lead up from the last person. Was it Vijay who had commented? Shaniel. Okay, right. Okay, Shaniel. Which is very interesting what you said, because you said that there's a lot for you to do, and this is what we normally feel, and there's a lot of track to cover. It is not so, because we need to start from where we are. Again, we need to take stock of ourselves, right? And this is what I do when I go into the different areas and when I'm working with life coaching. We need to, all of us need to itemize, and this is where journaling comes in, right? We should actually take stock, take inventory of ourselves, where we are, right? None of us are really up in the front or backward or somewhere in the middle. Where we are now is exactly where we are supposed to be, right? So we need to start from that. So we need to itemize our lives, right? Exactly where we are, right? And from there, and this is part of Swadharma as well, because this is exactly where we are. Now, how do we need to build capacity? And I agree with him when he said that, that my lecture was quite detailed. There's a lot there. And I will send it across. And, it could be broken up into modules maybe. But your first thing would be to actually look at the journal, at journaling everything. And this is what I do when I work as a life coach, when I work with abused women and children. This is the field that I was in the 80s, working a part of an organization called CLIG, Child Lab Intersexual Group. And, this is where we learned certain modalities through the UN, etc. And we need to look at where the person is, right? And to journalize and to take stock of it. And nobody's life can be built up within an hour or in a day. But for the period that you're working with somebody, you would ensure that you leave behind at least one factor that the person can grasp and move forward, right? And the next time that you meet the person again, or even by telephone or by email, you leave another factor and you follow up and you see how much the person has moved. Now, this is part of the whole thing of, again, what is our dharma? It is actually set and established with us. And then what is our swadharma? So swadharma is also, as if you go through what I've spoke about, is a continuous process, right? And you mentioned, Karuna, about the Vedic lifestyle. Again, it is something that is within us. It is already within us. We need to just to untap it. We need to know how. It is not really a difficult thing. Normally, what we do is we tend to oppose it, or we tend to deflect situations away from us. So we need to be accepting of who we are. The first thing in life is acceptance, right? And to look deep within ourselves. And that's where, we have, wonderful organizations like the Arya Samaj with our principles, our blue book, okay, the Arya Samaj prayer book, right? We need to go deeper into what we have. In other words, what we have are the tools that we need to look deeper into. That is basically what I would, say.
Thank you. It's pretty useful. And I know there's a number of students here. I'm not too sure if they have any questions. Yes, Rina, please go ahead.
Okay. Namaste, everyone. Like Pandit Manogaran has said, so much of good things about Swadharma. I just want to add that Swadharma is also about our own skills and nature and talent We can start now by using them, because right now we all are affected by the power hungry, the egoism, the greed, and the ignorance and the hatred. We all are experiencing this firsthand. And keeping a journal, I tell this to everyone, keep a journal, but I don't do it myself. So I'm going to start doing this, and beginning with gratitude. So we must also understand that in Hinduism, every Hindu being has a mental constitution. And this constitutional makeup is said to be composed of the three gunas, which is very nicely explained to us, which is sattva, rajas, and tamas. And our minds throughout the day are going through our sattva, rajas, and tamas. It's how we handle our calmness, our valor, and our inactivity or our laziness. This goes on throughout. It's up to the individual to select. We want to be more like sattva, calm, patient, tolerant, forbearing, or do we want to be like rajas, always characterized by valor, courage, activity, go-getting, or tamas, that is inactivity, perpetual tiredness, and a dull mind and ignorance. So it's really up to us. And the Gita also says that the person whose mind is always free from attachment, who has subdued the mind and the senses, and who is free from desires, attains the supreme perfection of freedom from karma through renunciation. So all this laps up with our Swadharma. Okay.
Thank you, Rina. So obviously we all have to act, because we're here to work on and act all the time. The question is, are we actually thinking about our actions? Are we actually doing our actions in the rhythm of the universe, in line? And I think, obviously, as we go on and as we start from where we are, you can only move ahead. You can only move forward. You can only build on that. So for everyone who said we're going to start the journal, yes, you can also do the journal in your head. You don't have to physically write it. Writing it helps you to go back to it. But when you're taking stock, you can actually, in your mind, take stock and get going. It's important to be in the present all the time. And thank you so much, Uma, for sharing those thoughts with us, for taking us through things, and to everybody else who's raised their points. Friends, we're now going to actually ask Uma if he's a musician, and he shares a lot of music on his Facebook page. But it would be good, after all that you've been saying, to share some good sounds with us, so we all feel a little more calmer and a little more together and a little more knowing ourselves. So,
all right. Most of the things that I do on the Facebook page is mostly to while away the time during the evening lockdown. But maybe I'll just do a verse or so without taking too much time. Something that might be appropriate for the period that we're living in, and the stress and the anxiety that we're experiencing. And the song, the words are quite easy to understand, so it's going to be in English. It's called Perhaps Love, and this is what I think we need at the moment. Love is a unique force and the greatest force, that we need this to be inculcated, starting off from deep within ourselves and spreading it out in bands. And this is what South Africa needs today. Perhaps love is like a distant place, shelter from the storm. Perhaps love is like a resting place, shelter from the storm. It exists to give you comfort that is there to keep you warm. And in those times of trouble when you are most alone, the memories of love will bring you home. Perhaps love is like a window, perhaps an open door. It invites us to come close, and it wants to show you more. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, the memory of love will see you through. And even if you lose yourself and don't know what to do, the memory of love will see you through. Thank you very much, Karuna.
Thank you very much, Panditji. It's so nice to have a very groovy Panditji around. Not that the other Panditjis are not groovy, but to have somebody who actually brings things together from the modern world and links up with the ancient teachings of the Vedas. So thank you so much. Friends, we're now going to move on to something very exciting. The Arya Samaj Gauteng has conceptualized a project, and as I indicated, it is the Mandela Day coming up, and there's the 67 minutes of selfless service that we can all do to contribute to saving our planet. And I'm going to now ask Umesh Bahadur, the chairperson of Arya Samaj Gauteng, to share the project on the square meter garden with all members on the webinar. Umesh?
Thanks, Karuna, and namaste to everyone. I feel a little challenged now after going through the intellectual journey that Pandit Uma had taken us through, and that beautiful rendition of the piece that he did. It was so rich. But I'm going to take another journey, this time into our backyards, just with something very practical that we've come up with as the Arya Samaj. So I'll just share my screen and then speak of that. Okay, so I've titled, I'm going to go through the presentation and take questions thereafter. And we'll just try and go through the set of slides, and there's quite a few photographs in there. So it will go, I'm going to go through those fairly quickly, but we can always come back to them if need be at a later stage. So essentially what we're going to look at is just the concept that we have, why it's needed, how it's done, and as Arya Samaj, what our approach is, and what we've done so far, and briefly a discussion on the next steps. And this is a collage that Shanil had put together that we had shared some time back, but you'll see these pictures again during the presentation. So in essence, what is this concept? The concept is called a square meter garden. And in essence, it is an approach to grow food in very small spaces and getting as much food as you can out of that small space. It started in 1981 as a concept that was coined by a civil engineer. And he felt that the conventional gardening methods were not efficient. So what he did, he combined his city design mind and planning skills, and with his retirement, and decided to do a new type of gardening that's a little smarter. So he went into the route of gardening in a small space, but his one was called square foot gardening, but we've adapted it to call it square meter gardening for a reason I'll speak to later. And so what you'll need to do is measure meter by meter out on the ground or a raised bed, a picture of which you'll see just now, which is better to work on. Plan what you want to plant. There's no need for a big space. So even if you are living in a flat like Karuna does, and you have 1 square meter or even half a square meter, you can adapt. Grow food on your patio, balcony, or even in a small pot. It doesn't require weeding if you make the right mixture of soil. Or even if you don't, you'll need to weed once or twice and then it clears it up. There's less work as compared to a huge garden and strain on the body. And no general effects to your broader garden. And it's incredibly easy and ideal for people that want to start up. So essentially, this is the first glimpse of a garden. This is not really 1 square meter, but it's a compact garden that something to the effect of what we are talking about. So why is there this need? The need we had discussed some time back was around growing our own organic vegetables. In today's economic crunch and COVID challenges, there's very little food security for many people, and it's a way in which we can save money. And there's also joy and convenience of producing our own food and getting stuff straight out of your own soil with much smaller environmental and health costs. And you can customize the crops to what you like. And then you can have anything between 4 to 16 crops within the 1 square meter. That must be really confusing you now. But let's see how it goes. And then you'll be able to lessen your carbon footprint for those people that are environmentally aware. So let's see how it's done. You first get your space that you want to grow in. You build or you buy, if you a made one, or get someone to make it for you, a raised bed box. Line it with a bit of plastic. Put in your soil. Generally, you can get something that's mixed already. I mixed my own. I'll tell you how. And lay out your grid, and then you start planting. So let's go on. So this is my very humble, but expensive, I might add, structure that I built, because I bought the brown pieces of wood I had from a previous building that we had done. But the ones that are not varnished are those that I bought, and it cost me close to 800 Rand for the timber. And I also bought the bottom of the container and lined it with paper, as you'd see, so that you don't have damage to the wood around it. I did have a few lessons. You'll notice that there's a white drainage here. There's one on the other end as well, but I'll come to that. And eventually I began planting seedlings. And so this is how it looked about 3 or 4 weeks after it was planted. Remember, this was June, July last year winter, and we were getting ready for the summer months. So it was a fairly good crop, and we had good results out of it. So so this is the concept. So you look at, you have, when I spoke about 16 squares, so can you see how many different crops there are in this one small structure? And it's easy for you to bend over and work in that block or in that block. So if you go backward in mine one, you'll find that I had used ordinary string to make the blocks. So I planted thyme here, lettuce here. This was beetroot, and there's some tomatoes at the edge, and carrots here. So I had quite a few crops here, and many of them did well, but one or two of them I had to transplant because they grew very, very big. But it's all in the learning experience. So how does one, so these are the options that you have. So if you have squares like I've described, like that, so in one square, which would be that, you could plant the following in the one square: okra, parsley, those kinds of things. You could plant 2 of these per square if you've got that size of square. Or because when they're a little smaller, you can plant up to 4, or you play around with whatever options you have. So when you look at wanting to put 8 or more per square plantings, it may be difficult for you to configure where do you plant it. So these are available. You look on the right-hand side, ready-made boards, which you can also make with these holes in them, and you can space out your seeds so that they come up in a good uniform manner. So that is what the square meter garden is. So why did the Arya Samaj find this as an interesting option? We were discussing around the options for COVID and how we're going to respond to doing some community work. And we discussed long and hard around whether we should be dishing out money, providing food, whether we had the capacity to do a soup kitchen and sustain it. And then we thought that the square meter garden is probably the most sustainable of the ventures that we could start up. And because if we taught people how to plant their own crops, it would sustain them for a while, and it could spread. But that was the beginning of COVID. Obviously, times have moved on a little bit. There are new problems upon us, but I think the status quo of insecurity, of the fact that our homes are the new safety zone, actually give a new meaning to this now. And the idea of a pilot was for us as executive members to start off our own version of the square meter garden in whatever way we thought that it was fitting. And then depending on the success of this, the executive members getting their crops going, we'll introduce you to the wider Arya Samaj community, as in the people that belong to the Gauteng Arya Samaj and the general Arya Samaj. And then eventually work towards going out to schools, communities, and to pick up on self-sustaining food security down the line. And eventually, I mean, the vision was to have poor households fed to some degree based on the spaces they have and a combination of community kind of inputs. So what has happened since then? So this is the full crop of that I showed you planted earlier, covered with the net for the frost. And further to that, this was a flat place of land that we had. If you see the green fence was newly put because our tree had damaged the fence in the backyard. So I had a fairly open space of land which I could use. So I used rocks that came out of that fence to do, I'll call it walls, but they're not really walls. But it was just around 35, 40 centimeters high. And I bought 2 loads of sand, mixed it with about 50 pockets of compost that I bought from a nursery. And I made 2 beds, one bigger than the other, besides the bigger structure that I showed you earlier. And bought seedlings. This was, I think, about 2 months after. You can see the grass is green on the left-hand side. So I think there was one rain. So this was probably taken out around September-ish. But still sparse and still growing. And it grew into quite a tangible amount of veggies for use at the table. This was the green beans. This was the lauki, calabash. And you can see we had a very bumper tomato crop. I didn't take out photographs though. This was the calabash that came out of it. For those people that know what type it is, you'll know it's called mataya lauki, which is a very soft and tasty one. This is one day's cooking. This was chilies specialist chilies that I got seeds of and grew into seedlings. And fresh herbs that came in useful rather than going to the local grocer. And then something more elaborate is this setup, which was far more than a square meter. But you can see how healthy this is growing. And this was grown from seeds, from seeds into seedlings, into very, very healthy crops. And this is Madan Bhai's garden grown in Douglasdale. And he has sustained this garden right from the time we started it, right up to now. I visited him last week and he gave me more seedlings to plant. And you can see how healthy it is. And he doesn't go too much for Indian veggies too. There's bok choy in the front end and good old methi and an ever a supply that goes on and on. And being vegetarian, he doesn't need to go far for it. And this is from Shanil's garden. Shanil has started up a new concept. I'll show you a picture of it, but struggled getting it off for some reason, but he'll explain to us and he'll explain his ideas as well. And then there are obviously other possibilities, and these I have been gathering for about probably a year, things that I've come across and very, very interesting. So this is one local example of someone using containers. So they didn't build anything. They just used containers that they got from somewhere, lined them up, and you can see it's looking quite healthy. This is a local. I'm not too sure which province this is, but you can do. She's also doing quite fancy, quite hilarious that she's using a toilet bowl there. Okay, and this again is a concept, and you can see the portioning is not necessarily 1 square meter. This is probably 2 by 1. But you could see this person invested a lot of money. Look at the fencing as well. Again, a container kind of operation. And this is drip irrigation into the local garden. Again, you can see something works for everyone. Okay, and these are slightly more elaborate. These systems are available in the US. You can buy them and then you can start up your little garden. And this is in the Far East. And Shanil's concept was this. I think he did use it, but he can explain a little further on what the problems were. So those were the kind of the pictures on where we are trying to go to. And if you have 2 of these at home, I think it'll be very useful because you could see they can get the digging and the planting done. And so what are the next steps? I think the next steps are very clear, and I think I'd like to hit the ball back into the court of people that are listening, that are part of this webinar. You're invited to, if this has spurred enough interest in you, research this further and chat with us if you need to. Assess whether you have the availability of space to start your own garden. Get your families and friends interested, because conceptually we want to become self-sustaining. And Pandit Uma Manogaran had spoken about personal mastery, about taking control. I think this is an ideal example of actually taking controls of our lives. And get your family and friends interested. And the Arya Samaj would like to start this on a wider scale once things normalize. We're working already at the informative stages with the HEAL Foundation to make this a flagship program for the broader, with the Arya Samaj South Africa. And if you're eager to get involved in a more deliberate kind of way, and even project lead this for us, please let us know so that we can go forward on this. So Karuna, I'll hand back to you and take points for discussion. I hope I haven't sped it along. I tried to make it compact within 10 minutes or so, and thanks so much.
Thank you, Umesh. You've done extremely well on time. Thank you for that. Friends, we open to discussion at this point in time. Any questions, any comments? Maybe I'm going to ask Shanil to start. Aarti will give you a chance just now. Shanil, do you want to add anything to the presentation that was made by Umesh? Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Just a couple of things. I think obviously Umesh has made this point, but just to reiterate, the whole concept of the square meter garden is that it's very small, generally speaking, not very costly to create, and pretty easy to maintain, not heavy on water usage as well. So, just with getting a few concepts right, one or two things I may have gotten wrong. I put it in the middle of a garden in the full sun, and it ended up, 100% in the sun in the middle of summer eventually. So that wasn't the greatest idea. You may want to position it carefully. But I mean, just from a cost perspective, I basically got, I think, I'm just trying to count how many it was. It was probably just 4 plus 4. It's probably about 10 or 11 or 12 blocks, which cost around 13 Rand each. So this wasn't, as Umesh was saying, this wasn't an 800 Rand investment. This was more like a 150 Rand investment. And for people who can't really afford to go and spend 800 Rand on a fancier garden, it's quite viable to do with just a few blocks, bricks, with the recycled plastic containers as Madan Bhai was using. So, costs can be kept quite low. And the whole concept obviously is that you don't want people to spend a large amount of money in getting the vegetables and herbs and those things that they want, because they may not have the large amount of money to spend. So I think that's just one thing I just wanted to mention. The cost can be reduced considerably by using recycled products or very, very simple building materials. But overall, initially the garden did grow very, very well. It's just that it ended up in the middle of summer, in the middle of the heat, and you need to be extremely careful about that. Thanks. That's it from my side. Namaste.
Shanil. Aarti ji, you had a point to make.
Thank you, Karuna. Namaste, Umesh Bhai.
Namaste.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. I just want to suggest something. Can we share this with all the other affiliates of the Arya Samaj? I think it's an excellent project, and I think all of them can pitch in and start this off in their own communities. We'll be helping people in the community
pleasure.
as well.
With pleasure, we can share this, and And, you know, as I said, I think if it goes to the HEAL Foundation as a flagship program, it's going to reach everywhere at the end, you know. So, but no, we don't need to wait for those things to happen. I think it's ready for sharing. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Umesh. That's what I wanted to say. It's an excellent project. I'm actually waiting to get started on it myself, and I'd love to see all affiliates starting this project in their communities. Thank you, Karuna.
Thank you, Ati. Yes, I also, I had heard about it from Umesh. He was so excited a year ago, and more than a year ago. And then he basically started it and shared the photographs with me. And I've been waiting for this to be put into the public domain, so to speak. I think it's a very exciting project. It has a very good developmental potential, but indeed, you know, it helps with relaxing also. And the green leaves of plants keeps people very calm. So there's a lot.
And Karuna, you know, I just want to, I want Madan Bhai to come through. Madan Bhai just had joy from this garden, and all of us from the executive have enjoyed something from Madan Bhai's garden at some stage, and actually Reena as well. Reena is not online today, Reena Kunan, because she would have, she's also had some very successful crops, but maybe Madan Bhai can tell us what they were as well. Madan Bhai?
Okay, thank you. Namaste. Namaste, Pandit Manogaran. Thanks very much for this evening. It is absolute joy, more so in my retirement days. I can tell you it didn't all start as joy in my youth, because when we were young on a farm in Escort, we had to grow vegetables to sell and to consume ourselves in the home. So that's where I developed my green fingers, but it meant spending a lot of hours in the garden. We planted everything, Indian veggies, potatoes, tomatoes, onions, you name it. And we used to go with little baskets to the neighbors and sell at 10 cents a packet and 15 cents a packet and 20 cents for mealies and so on and so forth. So certainly a very relaxing hobby and pastime, which was talked about by Pandit Uma. And really, it's so joyful to cut your own spinach and get that fresh smell of earth and the vegetables, and then put that in the pot. It's really, really amazing. So I do encourage everyone to look at this as a very, very stimulating pastime.
And you had some very successful crops, Madan Bhai.
Yes, absolutely.
Which has been going on, radish,
radish, green peas, spinach. We had lots of carrots, bok choy, and at the moment, the salad stuff is winter crops, as well as spinach and what's the other stuff that I have now? Lettuce, Spanish, and no, I didn't. Kale,
methi as well, yeah.
Oh yeah, methi grows. Methi is an excellent crop to plant, and it's very, very healthy as well. Just with Reena's concept, she and her son have been making boxes, about a meter and a half long boxes, and they've been planting in that, and that's also a very, very good concept. So wooden boxes that you can plant in, you can propagate your own seedlings in there as well, which is great.
And she had cucumbers, I think, that she shared with everyone.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Healthy cucumbers, yeah. Okay, thanks, Karuna.
Okay, thank you, Umesh and Madan Bhai and Shanil. I think the executive of the Arya Samaj Gauteng has really begun to plant very good seeds, and in future we're going to have very good fruit from the plants that they've actually put out. besides the fact that they actually have healthy meals, the idea of sharing it with the communities and assisting people to plant and get food sovereignty in place is a very interesting and important concept. Friends, if there are no other questions, I think it might be prudent at this point to basically, Reka, I see you've put something in the chat. I don't know whether you want to say something. As we...
Yes, thank you, Karuna. I want to send a challenge to all the Arya Samaj community to start something like this. It's a really exciting project. I myself teach all my medical students when I'm talking about diet. I teach them to tell their patients, encourage their patients to do this sort of planting. So I myself must mention that I cut the methi from the garden this morning, and I had spinach in my little planter pots, spinach juice. So I can relate to what the Bhaijis have been saying. And I want to challenge all the Arya Samaj community to follow this principle. And also what Panditji said, it's so Swadharma for existentialism is so important. But Reena Ben and Aarti, I have beaten you. I have a journal. I have a gratitude journal. I have a diary because I'm forgetting what I do and what happened in the weeks. So it's so important to do that. And you'll find a big difference. If you write just for 15 days also, you will find yourself, when you know that this has happened, when you experience it yourself, then let me know. So whatever your wish list, whatever, and strangely enough, I've been reading a book today on the power of love and how much if we show love for each other, that love comes back to us tenfold. So Karuna, thank you so much. I can do another talk, I think. So for time constraints,
you need to talk to Kiran if you want to do a talk.
Next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for all the contributions. As you can see, my sister likes to continue her talks. I think, Reka, you must actually put it on your Facebook room, your talk, so you can actually deal with it. And maybe you, Umesh and Manogran could get together and get something together for all your patients also. So there's a lot about holistic healthcare. It involves keeping the mind together, having the right diet, and doing the right things for yourself. And putting yourself first, actually. That's the biggest thing. That if you see to yourself, you get going. We have come to the end of today's webinar. And before I hand over to Reena, I just want to announce to everybody that on the 18th of August, we will be looking at an Arya Samaj commemoration of Women's Day. And our topic for the evening is going to be women's work in a changing world. So please do join us on the 18th of August. As you can see, we've shifted our gear. We now are really talking about practical things when we're looking at finding meaning in the current context. And I'm pretty sure that in looking at the Women's Day celebration, the commemoration, you will be pretty shocked because it's going to be a lot of people who are on this webinar who are going to speak. Over to you, Reena, to close.
Thank you, Karunaji, for your excellent introduction, as always. And today you look stunning. I don't know why. And thank you to our speakers for your well-researched presentations. And Pandit Manogaran, for your music, that was excellent. Really enjoyed your talk. To Dr. Rekha Mohan, my journal is in my head. So I do have a journal there. I'm just joking. I haven't started my journal. Umesh Pa, I am an avid gardener. I'm just waiting for topsoil. I've redone my garden just so that I don't have to bend and plant. Thank you, God, also for our digital technology. I'm so helpful. I'm so grateful, sorry, that I can use my digital technology.
You can't see a line.
Oh, I know.
And let's us all pray for peace for our family members in KZN and Gauteng, especially at this time, for peace to be restored and normality to ensue. Don't forget to mask up, sanitize, maintain your 1 meter distance, and keep safe. Let us all join our hands together and recite the hymn of peace, that is our Shanti Path. Om Dhyo Shanti Antariksham Shanti Prithvi Shantir Apa Shanti Oshadaya Shanti Vanaspatya Shanti Vishwe Deva Shanti Brahma Shanti Sarvam Shanti Shanti Reva Shanti Sama Shantir Edhi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste.
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 Namaste. Namaste.
Namaste.